So, have you noticed it too? You're scrolling and the internet just feels weird. Like, really weird. It's full of these bizarre images, articles that don't make any sense, comment sections that feel just a little off. Well, you're not imagining things. The internet is getting weirder, and we're about to find out exactly why.
What is actually happening here? Is this just some new, strange wave of memes? Or is it a sign of something much, much deeper? A fundamental change in how our digital world even works? Turns out this isn't just random noise. It's a symptom of a new and honestly fascinating problem.
You've probably seen this guy floating around. Meet Shrimp Jesus. In 2024, images just like this, all created by AI, completely flooded platforms like Facebook. And they got thousands of comments, a lot of them just the word amen. It's strange, it's surreal, and it is the perfect poster child for the internet's new weirdness.
But this stuff isn't just junk. It actually has a name. And it's a name so fitting that it's in the running to be Merriam-Webster's Word of the Year for 2025. This is AI Slop. And what looks like just some harmless, bizarre content is actually the very, very tip of a very strange iceberg.
The media started calling this the fuel for a zombie internet. The idea that a huge chunk of the web is, well, it's not human anymore. But here's the crucial part. This isn't just about weird pictures of shrimp. It's about a feedback loop where AI is literally starting to eat itself.
Okay, so let's get our hands dirty. What is this stuff really?
Officially, AI Slop is low-quality, high-volume digital content made with generative AI. You can basically think of it as the AI version of junk mail or clickbait. It's all designed for quantity, not quality. All to game the algorithms and grab your eyeballs for a second.
And the rise of this stuff, it's been incredibly fast. I mean, in 2022, it was a fringe term you'd only hear on some forums. Fast forward to 2024, and thanks to our friend Shrimp Jesus, it completely exploded into the mainstream. The problem got so bad, so fast, that by early 2026, even the CEO of YouTube said that fighting this stuff is a top priority.
So how does this even happen? Well, the best way to think about it is with the old photocopy of a photocopy analogy. The first copy you make, it looks pretty good, but it's lost a tiny bit of detail. The next copy, made from that first one, is even fuzzier. You repeat that enough times, and you're left with a distorted, unrecognizable blob. That is exactly what's happening when AI models are trained on data that was created by other AIs.
And this brings us to the villain of our story, a degenerative process that researchers have given a pretty awesome name, the curse of recursion.
This is the engine of the whole problem. See, you start with a big pool of real, human-made data. That's what you use to train your first AI, Model 0. But that AI then creates new synthetic data. And that synthetic data, it gets mixed right back into the training pool for the next generation, Model 1. So with every single cycle, the model is learning from a slightly more distorted, more artificial version of reality.
This process, where a model starts feeding on the output of its ancestors, has a technical name. And yeah, it sounds just as dramatic as it is. It's called model collapse. It's a process where the AI, generation by generation, literally forgets what the real world looks like. It starts to misperceive reality because its only source of information is this slightly off self-referential echo chamber of its own AI-generated content.
And researchers have actually watched this happen in two distinct stages. First up is early model collapse. This is where the AI starts to smooth over the interesting details. It forgets the outliers, all the weird, rare, unique things that make data rich. It's subtle at first, but then comes late model collapse. And this is where things get really bad. The model gets so confused that it starts blurring different concepts together until all it can pump out is generic, repetitive mush.
So what does this forgetting actually look like in practice? The results are, well, they're genuinely mind-bending.
So how does an AI actually forget what's real? It starts to prefer the average. Look at how this feedback loop works. The model begins to overestimate common, probable things and underestimate the rare, improbable ones. Over time, those rare events, what researchers call the tails of the data, they just shrink and vanish. The AI basically gets stuck in a rut, becoming biased toward the most generic, most probable version of reality it can come up with.
And if you want to see what that looks like in the wild, you have to see this unbelievable example from a language model. Generation 0, trained on pure human data, is perfectly coherent. It's talking about architecture. Okay, makes sense. But by Generation 7, it's starting to sound weird, like a nonsensical quote. And by Generation 9, It has completely lost its mind. It is stuck in this bizarre loop, obsessively listing different colored jackrabbits. This is model collapse in action. The model has literally forgotten how language works.
Okay, so this all sounds pretty dire. Is this some kind of irreversible death spiral for AI? Is the internet just doomed to become an endless ocean of jackrabbit lists and shrimp Jesuses? Well, maybe not.
So, how do we fix this? Is there a way out of this mess? Luckily, researchers are already working on ways to fight back against model collapse, and the secret ingredient might just be a little bit of surprise.
The first solution is a concept called surplexity. It's basically a measure of how unexpected a piece of data is to the AI model. You know, just like in humans, where surprise is what drives learning, feeding an AI data that has high surplexity, data it just doesn't expect, can reintroduce that diversity it's forgotten and pull it out of its collapse.
The second solution is something you might actually already be doing: human curation. When a tool like Midjourney gives you 4 options and you pick one to upscale, you're acting as a filter. You are telling the system which outputs are good or interesting or valuable. This human feedback is crucial. It helps select for quality and can steer the next generation of models away from just pumping out slop.
So let's bring it all back home. That weirdness we started with, the whole shrimp Jesus thing, it isn't just a random internet bug. It is a visible, tangible symptom of a massive, complex system that is starting to forget the difference between what's real and its own distorted reflection.
And this leads us to the final, really crucial takeaway. In a world that is drowning in synthetic, AI-generated content, authentic, messy, surprising, human-created data becomes more valuable than ever before. It's the only thing that can keep these systems anchored to reality. Which leaves us with one last thought to chew on. As our digital world becomes this ever more perfect echo chamber, full of AI just talking to itself, the line between what was made by a person and what was made by a machine is going to keep blurring. So how are we going to navigate a world where we can no longer tell what's real?